2017, my best friend and I, both 26 at the time, took a month-long road trip across the US. We had no real itinerary, just a big loop we planned to take across the country as a little vacation, if you will. On this particular night, we had just left Austin, Texas, heading north toward Clarendon. It was getting late, and we agreed to stop for the night wherever we felt too tired to keep going. That place ended up being Childress, Texas, a small town with not much more than a few motels and truck stops. We pulled into a basic motel, nothing fancy, but it seemed decent enough. We checked in, brought our stuff into the room, and noticed that there was an indoor pool. Figured we might as well go and sit in there for a bit and relax, because why not? On the walk from our room to the pool area, we passed by a few parked semis. A couple of the drivers leaned out of their trucks and started yelling and whistling at us. We ignored it and kept walking, but it definitely set the tone for the night. Once inside the pool area, we were the only ones there. At first, though, after maybe 10 or 15 minutes, a guy walked in. He looked to be around our age. He seemed friendly enough and struck up a conversation with us while sitting on the edge of the pool. We assumed he was staying at the motel too, so we asked him where he was from. "Oh, I live here in town," he said. "I just come hang out here sometimes. My buddy works the front desk." That was the first red flag. What kind of guy just hangs out at a motel pool for fun? But we played it cool and kept on chatting. The conversation shifted to what people do for fun in Childress. It's a pretty quiet town, and we were genuinely curious. But his answer? "Usually just bang my girl in the Taco Bell bathroom," he said, like it was no big deal. That and do some drugs. That was red flag number 2. At that point, my friend and I glanced at each other, clearly both thinking the same thing. Time to go. I said something like, "Well, we're beat. Long day of driving, you know. We should probably get some rest." And we both got up. As we were drying off and grabbing our towels, the guy stood up too and asked, "You guys want some company?" We both kind of laughed it off and said no thanks and started walking back to our room. Now, I had that prickly feeling on the back of my neck, the one you get when you know someone's watching you. I told my friend to keep walking past our room. We made a loop around the building and ended up at the open air vending area near the ice machines. From there, we peeked around the corner. Sure enough, he was standing at the corner of the main building, smoking a cigarette, just watching the path we had walked down. He wasn't leaving, just standing there, waiting. We waited it out for maybe 20 minutes until he finally walked back around the front of the main building. Once he was out of sight, we quietly hurried to our room. That's when we discovered the door did not lock properly. Not only that, but it had clearly been kicked in before. The frame was splintered and the deadbolt barely turned. We looked out the window, and there he was, now standing out front of our building. He wasn't smoking this time. He was just standing there, looking in the direction of our room. I guess his buddy at the front desk told him where we were staying. At that point, we were both fully on edge. We took turns staying awake while the other tried to rest, both of us sitting up in bed with pepper spray on our laps. I mean, every little sound outside made my stomach turn. By around 4 a.m., we had enough. There was no way we were getting any more sleep. We packed up as quickly and quietly as we could, peeked out the window one last time, and saw him, still there, standing near the parking lot this time, smoking again. We did not even think. We just grabbed our bags, walked as fast to the car as we could, got in, and locked the doors. As we pulled away, I saw him glance in our direction, and he did not move or try to follow us, just watched, Our next stop was a ranch-style Airbnb out near Clarendon. When we got there around 6 a.m., we were exhausted, shaken, and probably looked half crazy. But the people running the place were kind. They saw we were a mess, asked no questions, and immediately made us coffee and a huge breakfast. We did not talk much that morning, but neither of us ever stayed in a motel again for the rest of the trip. Back in 2019, my husband and I took a trip to the Canary Islands. It was our first real vacation in over a year, and we were both looking forward to doing absolutely nothing. Just beach, sun, good food, and rest. We booked this cool, subterranean beach house. It was built into the rock with modern glass walls and came with a big hot tub. We were pretty excited about it. But when we arrived, we immediately saw a giant hole in the patio where the hot tub was supposed to be. It had been removed or was under construction. We never really got a straight answer. Either way, we were pissed. We picked the place mostly for that hot tub. To the owner's credit, he responded fast. He offered to move us into the house right next door, which was significantly bigger, also on the beach, and had a working hot tub. It looked like the kind of place people rent for weddings. We agreed, moved our bags over, and honestly forgot all about the original issue. The new place was massive, way too big for just the two of us, but it was beautiful. Lots of guest rooms, glass walls facing the ocean, and spiral staircases that led to the upstairs bathrooms and bedrooms. That first night, after we got settled in, we had some wine, soaked in the hot tub, and just hung out, listening to the waves. Around midnight, I got out and laid on a beach chair to cool off. My husband stayed in the water for a bit before joining me. While we were out there, I saw a guy ride past on a bicycle along the beach. That part of the island didn't really have much traffic, especially that late. The guy didn't say anything, he just rode past slowly. It made me uncomfortable, but I brushed it off. I've always had high anxiety, so I assumed I was just overthinking it. About 10 minutes later, that same guy came back, riding in the exact same direction he had come from. It gave me a worse feeling this time, like something wasn't right. But again, I talked myself down. It was probably just someone out for a ride, maybe a local. Eventually, my husband said he was going to go inside and take a shower. I asked him to hang out with me a bit longer outside, but he said he was tired and really wanted to clean up and just crash. I stayed out in the chair, watching the water. Less than a minute after he went inside, I heard him scream. Not just yell, scream, loudly. No, 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 get out of here. I jumped off the chair and ran to the house barefoot and dripping wet. He was at the top of the stairs, panicked, pointing toward one of our guest bedrooms. He told me there was someone hiding behind the curtain. When he got to the top of the stairs and glanced into the room, he saw the part of a leg sticking out. Someone was crouched behind the curtain, trying to blend into the wall. The man must have just realized he'd been seen, because he jumped out from behind the curtain in a kind of fight or flight stance. But my husband, who's 6 feet tall and had just taken off all his clothes to shower, started charging at him. Apparently, that was enough. The guy panicked and ran straight for the window, jumped out, and disappeared. Since the house was built partially underground, the windows upstairs were actually level with the ground outside. He landed on the roof, then dropped down to the street and got on a bike, the same one from earlier, and took off. We realized afterward that we had opened a window in the guest room earlier to cool off the top floor. It had decorative wooden shutters with a basic latch. He must have watched us and waited for the right time. Once the sun went down and he saw the window was open, he climbed in. If my husband hadn't gone upstairs when he did, the guy probably would have had free rein to the house. We had our bags wide open on the bed, passports, cash, credit cards, everything. We reported it to the property owner and the police, but there wasn't much they could do. There was no cameras, no signs of forced entry, as they said, and no injuries. Just a very close call. I'm not kidding when I say this, but for the rest of the trip, I slept with a kitchen knife under my mattress. I know how that sounds, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone could just come in and do it again. I kept replaying it in my head. Him crouched behind the curtain, watching us, waiting for the right moment. Now, the Canary Islands are beautiful, truly, and I mean that. And this wasn't the norm. Every local we spoke to afterward told us how rare something like that is there. But the feeling of knowing someone was in the house, hiding, while you were right there, now that's something you just don't forget. Hey there. I don't know if this really qualifies as a horror story, but it was terrifying to me, and it could have ended a lot worse than it did. I figured it might be something for your channel. Last spring, I took a trip out to Big Bend National Park with my husband, our daughter, who's 14, and her best friend. Now, I grew up in the Southwest. I know the desert. I know what it does to people who don't respect it. You don't hike in the afternoon. You don't go anywhere without water. You don't get cocky. The day started off cool and overcast, surprisingly mild for that time of year. We did the Lower Burra Mesa pour-off trail early in the morning. It was an easy out and back, and all of us were feeling good. The spirits were high. When we got back to the car, I made a call I still regret to this day. I said, "Why don't we do the Upper Burra Mesa trail too? It's still cool, right?" Everyone was up for it. The girls were having fun, and it did not seem like that long of a hike. That probably was the first mistake. We parked again and started on the trail. It begins by descending into this wide, dry river wash, basically a floodplain that twists down through the rock. At first, everything felt fine. We were laughing, taking photos, just soaking the moment in. About halfway through the hike, something changed. The clouds just peeled back, almost like a switch had been flipped, and the heat came on hard. That brutal, silent desert heat that feels like you're just standing inside of an oven. I mean, I immediately felt it. The kind of heat that dries the inside of your nose, burns your lungs when you breathe too deep. I looked at everyone and saw the moment it hit them too. My stomach literally dropped. We were already halfway through. Turning around meant hiking back uphill in direct sunlight on loose, rocky terrain, and with our water bottles already more than halfway gone. I didn't say anything out loud. I think none of us did. But in that moment, I knew we had screwed up. We stayed at the Vista maybe 3 minutes tops. Nobody felt like hanging around anymore. We started back, and it quickly turned into one of the hardest hikes I've ever done. My daughter's friend twisted her ankle on one of the steeper climbs. It wasn't broken, but she couldn't put her full weight on it, and we had to keep on moving. There was no shade anywhere. I mean anywhere. We had no extra water, no salt tablets, nothing. I remember watching the heat waves rising off the sand and just thinking, how the heck did this happen? Every step literally felt heavier than the last. My legs were shaking, not from exertion, but from something else. Maybe heat exhaustion or nerves. We all stopped talking. All you could hear was our breathing and the occasional sound of someone tripping over a rock. I remember my vision going a little fuzzy. I started seeing little flickers, like bright stars in the corners of my eyes. We stopped for a few seconds, but there was no shade to rest in. Just standing in the sun made things that much worse. There was one moment, about a mile from a car, when I felt like my legs were going to just stop working. I looked at my daughter, and she looked pale, like she'd been wrung out. Her lips were dry and cracked. She had stopped sweating. That scared me the most. I didn't want to say what I was thinking, but I think we were all thinking it. This could actually kill us. We finally got back to the car. I don't remember unlocking it. I just remember falling into the seat and feeling like I couldn't even lift my arms. We had a cooler in the back with water bottles, and we all started chugging. Each of us drank probably 5 or 6 bottles in the span of 10 minutes. No one said a word, just breathing and drinking, and none of us had to pee. That's when I realized just how close we came to something really bad happening. We drove back to the basin and eventually found a ranger. When we told him where we'd been, he just looked at us and said, "Someone died on that trail last week from heat stroke." That hit us hard. I literally felt sick. I've always prided myself on being the responsible one when it came to the outdoors. But that morning, I let the nice weather fool me into making a careless choice. One that nearly cost all of us everything. It's the scariest thing I've ever experienced. Not because it was sudden or dramatic, but because of how slowly and silently it crept up on us. The desert does not play around. We were lucky that day. Anyway, thanks for reading.